Welcome to Evolving Waves, where we ride the tides of adversity to reach the shores of success. Today's episode, we have the privilege of speaking with a true expert in the field of tax and finance, as well as networking and lots of other areas of business. Join us as we welcome Steve Nettles, the CEO and owner of TaxPros Plus and the co-founder of the North Charleston Chamber of Commerce. With over 30 years of experience in banking, tax accounting, and fiscal management, Steve has dedicated the last decade to helping clients navigate the complexities of tax resolution, preparation, and planning. As an enrolled agent and tax expert, he is committed to providing personalized solutions tailored to the unique needs of each individual and business. Not only does he have passion for tax, he's also got a deep passion for his community. He's been involved in networking in the local business community for a number of years, and that led him to starting the North Charleston Chamber of Commerce, which is a whole other entity in itself and a rather large endeavor. In today's episode, we'll explore Steve's journey in the tax industry, the importance of tax planning, and the vital role of community engagement for fostering economic growth that he plays with the chamber. Whether you're a business owner looking to optimize your tax strategy and to better understand the nuances of tax resolution, or you're looking to get into networking and expand your community involvement, this conversation is packed with valuable insights you won't want to miss. So without further ado, let's welcome Steve Nettles to the Evolving Waves podcast. Steve, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on board. I'm excited to have the episode. For those that aren't aware, which I'm sure most of you aren't, Steve is a longtime friend of mine as well. We've been in business with the North Charleston Chamber now for a number of years. Prior to that, we started another networking entity across Charleston and the region. We go way back, man.
Yes, we do. Way back.
It's fun having you on. Well, before we dive into the questions, definitely want to take a quick second to give a shout out to our sponsor. Today's podcast is brought to you by Stingray Branding. We are a national lead generation focused marketing agency that helps businesses generate an ROI from their marketing efforts by helping them get branded, get identified, and get results. You can learn more about us at stingraybranding.com. With that said, thank you so much for taking time to come on. Let's kind of jump right into it. So,
Okay.
you are an enrolled agent.
Yes.
Can you explain a little bit as to what that term means, right?
Yeah.
Because it's more than just a CPA or a bookkeeper.
Yes, there's a pretty good bit of difference. Back in the early 1900s, there were tax problems. And when the government started taxing individuals and businesses, they were having problems with anybody just saying they could help them, but they were taking the client's money and not really helping them. So what the federal government, Congress decided to do was set up a profession that they would be licensed and be able to take care of people's tax problems. And that's when the enrolled agent came about in the early 1900s to take care of those tax problems. And what we do is we specialize in, my role is solving people's tax problems. And whether it's a business or individual, if they get into issues with the taxing, being owing taxes or also not filing timely returns, we work with them to get them headed in the right direction and keep them headed in that right direction. But I'm licensed by the Treasury Department, so we don't answer directly to the IRS. We have the Treasury Department that we work through.
So that's, obviously you've got lots of tax professionals that are out there, right? It's tax time right now whenever we're recording this episode. And, there's lots of different tax companies and even you can do it yourself, right? You can do your own taxes online. When somebody's considering doing their own taxes or hiring somebody, what's the kind of the thing that stands out where you're going to be able to assist them on a different level than maybe their friend that is a bookkeeper or CPA, or if they just went online and try to do it themselves?
Yeah. What makes us different is what happens is that when people are trying to do them themselves, and if they end up with issues, they don't know how to answer the questions that's coming up in the software programs and that type of area, then they need to talk to a tax professional. And you ask, why do we say a tax professional? Because it's like when somebody comes in and says, well, I was told that I didn't have to do that. And I always ask them, who told you? And they would say, well, my friend. I said, what profession is he in or she in? And they'd say, well, he works as a mechanic, or he's working for a other type company, retail or whatever, not tax professional. And so I remind them of that they need to get somebody that's in the profession that they're looking for. If they want somebody to work on their car, then they need to talk to a mechanic. If they want somebody to help with their taxes, they need to talk to a tax person. And if they want a banking information, financing, then they need to talk to a banker.
That's great advice that I wish that people would implement a whole lot more, right? In our sales pitch, we generally will say a lot of the same stuff that, you know, we're not meant to know it all. We're not meant to be able to do it all. So, you know, let the tax person handle the tax stuff. Let the plumber handle the plumbing stuff. You know, I'm not going to ask I'm not going to ask Steve to come fix my toilet, just as you shouldn't be asking the guy that fixes your toilet to do your taxes.
Exactly.
Well, and you know, have taken that a step further than just being licensed as an enrolled agent, but you've started your own business, right? Which you're not just an
Yes,
enrolled agent, you're a business owner.
that's exactly right.
And that in itself has its own challenges, right? Starting a business is not for the faint of heart. It's not for those that want work-life balance, and it's not really for those that are trying to get rich.
Yep, exactly. Not in the beginning, anyway.
No, yeah. Hopefully down the road it'll pay off for all those things.
Yeah.
But you know, your first few years, you're not going to have that. And if you wouldn't mind, kind of go into that journey, right? What led you into deciding to start Tax Pros Plus, and maybe a few of the challenges you went to or lessons learned in the beginning?
Yeah, I took a few years off around 2000 and trying to decide exactly where I wanted to head with the next segment of my life. And my wife wanted to move back to Charleston. She grew up in Isle of Palms, and so we said, okay, we would do that. We'd move back here. And then I took some time off trying to decide what we wanted to do. But I always enjoyed taxes. I always did them for free for many people. And so I decided that I needed to go ahead and just start a tax business and start helping people with their taxes. And we opened up in 2005. Is when we first opened up the tax office. And about the second year, a large firm offered me a job. And so I said, well, let me take it easy. I'll go ahead and take the job and run with that. And I worked for them for 4 years, and then they closed down. So my wife and I, you always have your partner. She's my partner, and we talked about it. And we decided that we wanted to do our own thing because we knew we could help people with their tax problems. And so we opened up Tax Pros Plus back up in 2011. And after we opened back up, you asked what challenges we had. Of course, we had many of them. Everything that any small business have: office space problems, clients, cash flow, staffing. All those were the issues that we had going on. So there's a little bit of information on each one. So we had to find a location because I wasn't going to run it out of my house. A lot of business start in the house, but I wanted a professional image. And with a professional image, I had to find me a location. So I started going from around the local businesses in town looking for a location, and I found one. Matter of fact, it was Charlie McQueenie State Farm Agency. He had an office space for rent, so I rented from him and started it up. And he had room for me to expand because the first 6 or 8 months I was by myself. And I was doing networking, and also I was working for a couple of national companies doing their tax resolution work for them because they had more than they could handle. And open for about 6 months, I told my wife, I said, I got to do something. I said, if I work 24 hours a day for the next 6 months, I wouldn't be caught up with the work I had. So there wasn't no way for me to get work caught, so I started hiring staff at that point. And we hired 2 employees at that time, and it went well. But then we wanted to continue to grow, so then I had to start working on more clients. So then we started networking, and that's when we met. Was in those early years of networking in my business. And the networking went great. I got good advice from Alan when we were starting up about always when you go to an event, do whatever you can to get on the stage. So of course the easy way to get on stage is give away free gifts, because then you can get on the stage, give away the gift, and get to say a little bit about your business. And that's how I started with that, with working in that area. Staffing is also, that comes in with your networking because you're talking to a lot of different people. And when you're needing more employees, you can pick them up through that area.
So as you kind of think through right there, and there's each of those different areas presents its own challenge, its own timing, and you could ask questions almost about every one of those areas, right?
Yeah.
When do you make the decision to hire? When do you make the decision to fire? How do you go about gaining clients? How do you go about promoting those things? And how do you manage your finances to pick the right location and choose when to, where you need to be for location, right? And there's so many things that as a business owner you have to consider in each of those different decisions, right? There's no decision that you make in business that should be waking up, drinking a cup of coffee, and going, "I'm going to do this today," right? There needs to be some data, some planning, and thought. And I think a lot of people have this idea or about business owners that well, today I'll just go buy a new car, and it's not that easy. There's got to be reasoning and such behind those things. Can you maybe share a specific adversity that you kind of face in those early years, looking back on now, that had you maybe known a thing or two, you could have overcame quicker or maybe even avoided altogether?
Probably the biggest adversity I had was time management and staffing. Because the building of the time management, you got everything that's going on in your business. You got the the new clients, the existing clients, doing the paperwork, filing returns. If you have bookkeeping, then you got to do bookkeeping work. And then when you also working for a couple of national companies, working for them, then you got to make sure everything flows well for them and getting the proper software in place and moving it forward from there. But
Well, and as you think through the adversity of that, um, what are some things that you know now about time management that if you had known back then would have helped you grow a little faster and maybe not been so stressed in those early years?
yeah, I think that in the early years, I had the thought of I could do it all myself, and then nobody could do it better than I could. So why not just do it myself? And I had to overcome that in my business, that I had to learn to delegate and get somebody else.
So I think one of the things that stands out to me with that um, is whenever you're trying to do it all on your own, you end up being the master of nothing, right? And then it's within your own business, you can have the same issues as being the customer, right? You don't want your plumber to necessarily be doing your taxes. Well, within a business, you also have things that you do really well and things that you don't do really well, right? Because there's multiple areas of running a business. It's not just the actual execution of tax work and bookkeeping. There's financial management, there's staff management, there's office management, there's marketing, there's legal, right? There's all these different things that you have to do within a business. So even though you own a tax business, you're not just doing taxes. And as you started making some of those decisions of time management and staffing, how did you go about the process of understanding what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing and what to hire for?
Yeah. My thoughts on that is what I looked at doing when hiring additional staff. I hired more qualified or as qualified as I was. And that was the only way I could do my business because I wanted to make sure the customers were taken care of. And the issue is that, remember I mentioned earlier that I couldn't get the work done no matter if I worked all the time. And nobody can work that for long. So so when we moved into hiring more people, I made sure that they were more qualified than us. And guess what? They made more money than I did. I paid them more than I got so that I could have the quality level that I wanted in my company.
That's a huge point, right? That's different from what you hear about in business. Everybody thinks the business owner makes all this money, right? They see they might even get to be privy to see the revenue numbers of the business. Like, well, man, that company's making all kinds of money. That employer or whatever, maybe they must be living the high life. But in reality, what you're saying is you made less money as the business owner than your employees made.
Yes. And the reason for that is you make sure that your clients are taken care of. Your customers comes first. And that's how we built the business, was taking care of the customers first.
Just take care of your staff, and the money will follow. The clients will follow. I totally agree. Totally agree with that. Through your process of running Tax Pros and growing it, you decided to buy another business at some point. Is that right? Acquire them?
Yes, I did. Yes. I wasn't actively looking, but it came available. A friend of mine through networking said that they knew of a tax practice was for sale, and I said I'd be glad to meet with them and talk with them, and because I wanted to see if it was going to be a fit for what we were doing. And I met with them and talked with them, and I enjoyed meeting with them and discussing things with them. And I said, well, I would like to have them working with me and my firm. So it was a good match.
Well, and I've gone through the process of buying a business as part of growing my business and stuff, and that taught me a whole lot of lessons that I wasn't planning for. I thought I had a great plan, thought I had a roadmap, and I was lots of money would come in from it, and all this other stuff, and I'm going to grow it and leverage it. And I know I've got way more work ethic and drive than this other guy has, and whatnot. And I found out real quick that a lot of the things that I thought about myself weren't quite true. Would you mind kind of sharing some of the thoughts that you had from making the decision that you're going to buy that business through merging and the actual acquisition, and maybe a few lessons that if you knew, hindsight's 2020, so if you knew now, would have made that process go a little easier and maybe a little more profitable?
I think we set it up pretty good to make it profitable for Tax Pros. The issue was when I met with them, like I mentioned, I liked the husband and wife team. One was a CPA and the other one was an enrolled agent. And so they were wanting to retire, and I told them no. I said the only way I would acquire the business if y'all come to work with Tax Pros. I said I'll take a 1-year commitment, and then they wanted a certain amount for the business, but it was a little sporadic, the income from their business. So I told them that I would pay them this much up front, and then I would pay them a percentage the first year of all the clients that came back, and then a percentage of that the next year. And whatever that is, that's how much I'd pay them for the business. And it was a high percentage. We paid them 50% of the first year, and it might have been, say, 40% the second year or something like that. But yeah, they ended up a pretty good bit. But after that, it was only a 1-year commitment, but he ended up staying 3 years.
Well, that's a
and his wife stayed.
there.
Yeah, and the wife stayed for 3 years.
That's awesome.
So it was real good. But they were ready to retire. He was sick and he didn't let us know. But anyway, he passed. After he left, he passed away 2 years after that.
Well, that's a whole other story in itself. There, right? You can go down a rabbit hole with that. That you hear stuff like that happen all the time with people that leave the military and so on too. I think as a quick kind of footnote on that, if you're considering retiring and getting out of something, have a plan to stay active and to keep your life going, because a lot of and obviously nobody knows when they're going to go, and we don't want to necessarily dive too much into what led to his passing, but I know that whenever I decided to finally retire from Stingray branding, that I will have something else after that, right? I don't want to just sail off into the bliss and think that I'm going to sit around on the couch all day and do nothing. And from what I've heard, retirement usually is more work than just staying in your job, especially if you've got a partner that likes to get stuff done and likes to see progress. You might end up finding yourself more employed with that than you did at your 9 to 5.
Yeah. You got to do something. So I've decided that I'm not going to retire. I'll cut back on my weekly hours, and I'll take longer vacations, but I'm not going to retire because I want to maintain a lifestyle.
That makes
and
sense.
maintaining the lifestyle is all part of that. Is staying healthy and keeping your mind good.
Yeah, keeping moving.
Yeah, keep it going.
Well, and so, through running Tax Pros, I know obviously, we were partners in a previous networking organization. And after that, we decided looking at starting the North Charleston Chamber of Commerce. And, I had my own reasons and stuff for deciding to do that. But I'm curious if you wouldn't mind kind of sharing why you would choose to add on to already being a business owner, which in itself is a full time or more occupation.
Yeah. Well, you think about it. What the original thought we came up with was there was nobody taking care of the small businesses in North Charleston and in the area around it. So um, you always find a way to give back, and you think about it. And the best way I wanted to give back was the same thing that people gave me for the 10, 15 years when I had my practice going, starting up and everything. And so I wanted to be part of giving back to the community, and that was through helping small businesses with any needs that they have. And the North Charleston Chamber wants to be a focal point. So if anybody needs anything for their small business, whatever, they should be able to call the chamber, and we can get them headed in the right direction for what they need. And that's pretty well my goal on it.
That makes sense. Well, and so it's a nonprofit, right? Which
Yeah.
is different than a for profit and has its own challenges of launching. As you kind of think back through kicking off that, what are some of the challenges that were faced, and how did you navigate those? I know we ran different parts of the chamber, right? So you had your own kind of half of stuff that you were doing. I had my events that I was doing. So would you mind kind of touching on kind of working as a partnership initially, but then launching and growing a all volunteer company
Yeah,
essentially?
exactly. Yeah, the challenge we had was first around was getting members and getting volunteers. And my first big project was starting the lunch and learns. We kicked that off, and of course, starting that, and we had to find speakers, we had to find locations, we had to find sponsors, and set up the menus in the venue and make it smooth, run like it was a natural act. And that was a huge challenge putting it all together from day one from scratch. But it's still running in the chamber, the lunch and learn, so I think it's a viable part of it, and it always will be. So that was a good, and I feel happy about that adventure, and it's working out for the chamber.
Well, I think, as you consider starting something that's all volunteer based, and specifically a nonprofit, is if you haven't had a chance to listen to our episode with Katie Blumquist of Going Places, you've got to have a great mission, right? You've got to have a reason for doing it. There's got to be some drive there in order for you to get volunteers to want to contribute their time and efforts. You've got to have something there that they're going to benefit from, right? It can't all be one-sided for the organization. There's got to be something else, whether that's just them feeling good about doing something, whether they care about the mission itself, or maybe there's some promotion on their end and some non-tangibles that they're going to get in their own life or business. Make sure that you understand what those things are, and that you're able to convey those things properly, explain them, and teach them. And then, of course, you've got to have great leadership, right? And
Yeah.
transitioning a business and handing it off to volunteers, or even a staff that you're paying, it's not quite that easy, right? You think, oh, I'll hire somebody, they can come in and help. They don't just know how to walk in and start helping right away and helping in the way that you want them to. Um, what are some of the things that you've done to help teach others how to do what you do?
Oh, wow. The biggest thing was setting up sheets for them to go by, to-do lists and tasks that has to be done for each event to make sure those particular items get done. And we've hired a couple of assistants to help us out in the beginning with some of the work, and we gave them a to-do list so we know exactly what they were doing and where they were heading with it. And that's the only way to move forward with something like that, to make sure that you have a list made so that you can communicate well with them to get the task done. that is needed.
So it's not just hiring, but you've got to guide where they're going to go and help them to, train them to know what you want them to do and how you want them to do it and when you want them to do it, right? And laying that out for them. Because if you just kind of hire them and you're like, hey, here's this, go. You don't really know the result you're going to get from that, and the result could be no result.
You have no idea what you're going to get.
Well, as we kind of look to wrap up today's episode, I've got two questions I always like to close on. I think they're, if nothing else, if nobody listens to the other 20 minutes or so of the episode, they can at least listen to these two questions and hopefully get a takeaway from what we're doing. Right. And the hope out of all this is that if you're considering going down the journey that Steve has, whether that's being in the tax business, or starting a business of something else, that if you listen to this episode, hopefully you can take a few tidbits from it, apply them to your journey, and hopefully spring yourself forward a little bit or be inspired to continue going. So the first question along those lines is, as you look back over your now multiple decades of being in the industry, being a professional, and then of course the last decade and a half now of running your own business, what would you say is one or two pieces of advice that you would share with yourself going back 20, 30 years, or if you were having a conversation with somebody starting out, what's those one or two things that you would kind of pass on to them?
Yeah. I think one of the most important things is everybody has their profession. And so you got to have mentors in your profession that you can pick up the phone and call, because you want to have all the answers yourself. And when you, and even when I'm talking with clients, even today, I tell them that I have consultants on call now. And I've had the same consultants for over 10 years, the same two that I call. And they'll look up the answer and give me the answer, and they'll email it to me, and I can provide it to the clients if need be, or just tell the clients about it. And that's important in your profession, that you have somebody that you can rely on to do the finishing touches on items that you might not be clear on. And yeah, you can do your own research, but do you have the extra 3 or 4 hours to spend on the research? Whereas I can get the same results in 5 minutes with a phone call. Time management.
That's, I think it's a big one. It's one that I neglected a lot in my journey. I didn't necessarily in my journey, it was really cutthroat in my industry. So I didn't take the time to reach out and partner with some of the smarter people. There's one person in particular, Laura Carson, who's incredible. She gave me some great advice as I was coming up. And then as we kind of got to the same level of clientele and the same services and that kind of stuff, I didn't take the next step, which was finding that next mentor to help guide decisions. And, if you didn't listen to our episode with Donovan Ryder, he talks a lot about having mentors and then the impact of that. He actually pays 6 figures a year for his mentorship, for people that he has as mentors in his life that, have helped him to create a multi-million-dollar business, 10 times over. And I think it's really a key thing. And a lot of people that get in a business are A-type, dominant personalities that usually are kind of thinking like, I can do it all. I know what I'm doing. And if that's you, this is like the 4th or 5th guest out of our first 15 episodes or so that have said, have a mentor, have people that are smarter than you in your life, and utilize them. Ask for help. Yeah. Well, as we look to close, the last question I always like to ask is, what's next? What's next for Steve? What's next for Tax Pros? Right? What's that next big target that you're going after, and what are some things that you're doing to achieve it?
Yeah. Well, Tax Pros continue to grow, also taking care of the clients. But we, to continue with this, in the past, I've done a lot of networking and building relationships throughout the community and everything. So that's really going to continue my business to grow. So we're not looking at any additional locations or anything. We are going to stay where we're at. We bought the building 8 years ago. So we got a great location, and we're just going to continue to build and take care of issues in the community, whether it's a tax problem, if the IRS is calling them, or either if they need tax returns done, or if they need bookkeeping service. And also, we still do the resolution work. A little tidbit on the resolution work is a lot of people owe the IRS money. And of course, when COVID hit, the IRS, just like any other business, they got behind on their paperwork. So they quit sending out collection letters because they could have had a check that's been in an envelope. When COVID was over with, they had millions of pieces of paper in a vault, envelopes not opened. So they stopped completely, no collections from the beginning of COVID until mid last year when they finally got all the mail opened and sorted out. And so you think about it, everybody has issues. And that was IRS's issue. They couldn't move forward until they got all the mail processed. And so our goal is now that resolutions, people's getting letters and they're starting to call us and they're coming in now. So we're going to revamp our resolution business too and continue, because people need good advice on how to solve their tax problems. And that's what our goal is for the future.
Excellent. Well, if you're looking to connect with Steve or TaxPros Plus, right, you're looking for resolution work, or maybe you're looking for a mentor as you're kicking off your business, Steve, where can they reach out to connect with you?
Yeah, that's easy. Our phone number is 843-277-9128, and we're at 7679 Dorchester Road, North Charleston.
And of course, website, right? You can go to taxprosplus.com.
Taxprosplus.com.
Excellent. Well, as we look to wrap up our episode today, remember that in the face of adversity, there is always the potential for growth, resilience, and success. Join us every Monday as we continue to explore inspiring stories of overcoming challenges to help you thrive in your journey of life. Steve, thanks for coming on.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.